Hello and welcome. It's 10 a.m. on Friday, the 12th of September. You're tuned into our mid-morning newscast here on Arirang TV. I'm Mark Broome. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. Meeting for the first time in almost a year, high-level diplomats from South Korea, China and Japan agree that trilateral cooperation must not lose momentum in the face of deep historical and territorial issues among the three countries. Korea's first ever tobacco trial, led by a public organisation, gets underway today. The National Health Insurance Service is suing the country's largest cigarette makers to recover medical costs incurred due to smoking-related diseases. Plus, 10 Arab nations promise the United States that they'll do their share to confront and destroy Islamic State militants in Iraq and Syria. Our top story this morning, senior diplomats from Korea, China and Japan holding their first high-level trilateral talks in 10 months on Thursday have agreed to boost their trilateral cooperation to hopefully improve relations strained very deeply over history and territorial rows. Our Hwang Sang-hee starts us off.
Amid deepening diplomatic friction, senior officials from Korea, China and Japan met in Seoul Thursday, seeking fresh momentum in their trilateral cooperation. Divided over historical and territorial issues, the three neighbors have not held a summit since last year and met today at Korea's request.
The Republic of Korea has made strenuous efforts to resolve such a situation, either by hosting related meetings or by suggesting various constructive alternatives, with a sense of duty to continue working toward keeping and reinforcing trilateral cooperation.
The three countries have expanded exchanges in areas such as economy, trade and culture over the past 15 years, but regional rows are hampering further growth.
At the same time, our cooperation has seen difficulties and setbacks, which affected the general atmosphere of the trilateral cooperation.
Each country's chief diplomat agreed the next trilateral meeting should be conducted at a higher level to secure further progress in their cooperation.
We did have a meeting in mind that this must be followed up by the political level for the ministers and ultimately the supreme leaders.
But despite their agreement on this, the three officials failed to shake hands on when, where and how the much-delayed summit will take place. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye is set to embark on a week-long trip next Saturday that will take her to Canada and the United States. For the first time since taking office early last year, President Park will address the UN General Assembly, where she will lay out her plan for peace and stability in Northeast Asia. The president will also attend the UN Climate Summit in New York City and outline Korea's plan to tackle climate change. In Canada, President Park will focus on bolstering economic ties on the heels of Sewol and Ottawa's recently signed free trade agreement. This will mark the first time in 15 years that a Korean leader makes a state visit to Ottawa and follows Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper's visit to Seoul in March. Now, lawmakers here in Korea are still trying to work through their differences over the so-called Sewol ferry bill as pressure from the public is growing to reach a common ground over the details of a very in-depth investigation into the tragic sinking. Our Choi Yu-sun reports.
With neither side able to stand further public criticism over the months-long political standoff stemming from a bill to probe April's ferry disaster, the floor leaders from the ruling and opposition parties resumed talks Thursday to try iron out their differences. The ruling party wanted the opposition to clearly state its position on the previous bipartisan agreement on the bill, which the opposition now says should be renegotiated with the ferry victim families. The families are demanding a stronger voice in the investigation process, but the ruling party says that would violate the judicial system. Urging the opposition to cooperate in swiftly passing a number of economic and reform-related bills, the ruling party also wants the parliamentary speaker to intervene.
As the National Assembly law states, we asked the parliamentary speaker to exercise his authority to vote on those bills.
The opposition, for its part, continues to pressure the ruling side to first address the ferry bill.
The president, the presidential office, and the ruling party must resolve the Sewol ferry bill without giving further thought. The bill to find the truth behind the ferry disaster is one that concerns all Korean people.
In a move to get parliamentary business back in order, National Assembly Speaker Chung Ui-hwa will request the House Steering Committee on Friday to set an agenda for the current regular session. The floor leaders on Friday, or by the weekend at the latest, will give it another try to reach a compromise. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News.
Now, in relation to that story, as for who will lead the opposition going forward, New Politics Alliance for Democracy floor leader Park Young-sun, who's been filling in after her party's co-leader stepped down in July, she says an outsider will be recruited to lead the party's reform efforts. Now, some news just coming in. Korea's central bank has left its key interest rate unchanged at 2.25% for this month. This follows a rate cut by 1/4 of a percentage point in August that came as a means to boost economic growth, and we'll bring you more details on this in our next newscast at noon Korea time. Now, Koreans are among the heaviest smokers in the world, with just under half of all adult males regularly lighting up. And smokers in Korea have had it pretty good for years, as the cost of a pack of cigarettes is much, much lower than many other countries around the world. But that may soon change, as the government has announced the nation's first cigarette price hike in a decade. Our Hwang Ji-ae reports.
In just a couple of months, smokers in Korea may have to pay almost double what they currently do for a pack of cigarettes. While the change is being welcomed by many, it's also facing strong opposition.
I think the price hike could lessen the damage of second-hand smoke, since many of my friends say they will quit smoking if cigarette prices go up. People will reconsider buying cigarettes if they're more expensive.
When we raise cigarette prices to a level on par with other countries, we should also look at the welfare level of those countries as well. But the government's logic is way too simple, that smokers will quit smoking if tobacco prices rise.
The government announced Thursday that it will push through plans to raise the price of a pack by 2,000 won to 4,500 won, or roughly $4.30 starting next year. The aim is to cut the country's high smoking rate. Around 44% of adult males currently smoke, which is the highest among OECD member countries. Cigarette prices in Korea, however, are among the cheapest in the world, standing at just around 1/3 the OECD average. The price has been held steady for 10 years, but the health minister says the time for change is now.
We plan to introduce a pricing system where cigarette prices will be pegged to the nation's inflation rate. We hope this proves effective in dropping the smoking rate over the long term.
The ministry's goal is to cut the smoking rate for men to 29% by 2020. Other anti-smoking measures laid out by the government include mandatory warning images on cigarette packaging and banning retailers from posting any kind of cigarette advertisement. Before any changes take effect, they will have to be approved by the National Assembly, and with both ruling and opposition parties raising concerns that the measures will burden smokers in the low-income bracket, passage is far from a certainty right now. Hwang Ji-ae, Arirang News.
Now, just a day after the government's announcement of the first cigarette price hike in 10 years, the first ever tobacco trial led by a public organisation, not a private individual, begins on this Friday. The National Health Insurance Service is suing Korea's biggest cigarette maker, KT&G, as well as Philip Morris Korea and British American Tobacco Korea, to recover medical costs incurred due to smoking-related diseases such as lung cancer. The agency aims to prove the cause and effect relationship between cancer and smoking. through its huge database of patients. It also plans to prove the companies have broken the law during the production process of cigarettes. The National Health Insurance Service filed the complaint worth some $52 million back in April. Time now for a look through the international headlines we're following on this Friday morning. For that, we turn to Eunice Kim, standing by at the news centre. Good morning, Eunice.
Good morning, Mark.
Now, President Obama has been working the phones to rally regional support, the support he needs, really, to roll back the terrorist threat posed by Islamic State. And we are beginning now to see the formation of somewhat of a broad international coalition.
Right. A big part of that long-term strategy President Obama had laid out yesterday was building a global coalition. And now the U.S. will be joined by 10 key Arab states in this plan to take down the Islamic State militants. Our Son Jung-in has this story.
President Obama's broad coalition of U.S. allies to counter Islamic State militants is gradually taking shape. 10 Arab nations, including Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Egypt, and Lebanon, have vowed to support the international coalition, which aims to ultimately destroy the extremist group. This pledge came on Thursday at a meeting of the nation's foreign ministers and U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry in the Saudi coastal city of Jeddah. Kerry stressed the critical role Arab nations play in the joint communique. They will have to provide military support, humanitarian aid, and ensure the flow of funds and foreign fighters to IS is cut off.
And certainly the effort to repudiate once and for all the dangerous, the offensive, the insulting distortion of Islam that ISIL propaganda attempts to spread throughout the region and the world.
Kerry also dismissed Russia's questioning of the legality of the coalition without prior UN Security Council authorization. He said that if the situation wasn't so serious in Ukraine, it'd be amusing to think about Moscow raising the issue of international law. Washington's European allies have been offering their own forms of support. Germany says it's happy to provide weapons and ammunition. Britain and France have not ruled out joining U.S.-led military action in Iraq, but are wary about joining potential operations against IS positions in Syria. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
The hustle and bustle of the New York Stock Exchange was replaced by silence at the start of the trading day Thursday. In a moment of silence, Americans across the country remembered the nearly 3,000 people killed in the terrorist attacks of 9/11 13 years ago. At the site of the World Trade Center's Twin Towers in Lower Manhattan, the names of the people killed were read out by relatives in what has become an annual ritual. A silver bell was rung to mark the times when each of the 4 planes hijacked by al-Qaeda militants crashed and the towers fell. And in a private ceremony at the Pentagon, President Barack Obama honored the resilience of the surviving family members and the American people, saying that the country grows stronger despite the small, hateful minds that conspire to break their spirit. After 6 months of dramatic testimony, the verdict is in. South African Paralympic champion Oscar Pistorius has been cleared of all murder charges over the killing of his girlfriend, model Riva Steenkamp. Judge Thokozela Mazipa of South Africa's High Court said Thursday prosecutors failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Pistorius was guilty of premeditated murder. Mazipa questioned the reliability of several witnesses and raised concerns of police contaminating the crime scene. The double amputee had shot dead his girlfriend through a bathroom door in his home on Valentine's Day last year, claiming he thought she was an intruder. Pistorius, however, could still be convicted of culpable homicide or manslaughter when sentencing resumes on Friday. That charge carries a jail sentence of up to 15 years. And 1 week before Scots go to the polls to vote for or against breaking away from the United Kingdom, hundreds of thousands of Catalonians in Spain poured into the streets on Thursday, calling for their own secession from Spain. Separatists in the autonomous community said they were committed to holding a referendum vote on November 9th, the day that Catalonia had become a province of the Spanish crown 300 years ago. The poll would be regarded as illegal by the Spanish government and will likely be blocked by the country's constitutional court.
Said that a team of South Korea.
Get connected to Korea and the world. Join us every weekday for the latest developments out of Korea, Asia, and beyond. On air, on your mobile, and online, we lead the way every day. Arirang News.
To try and resolve the crisis in Ukraine, the European Union also offers $15 billion. Right, well, you might think that the recent detainment of 3 Americans might put Westerners off travelling to North Korea. Well, you'd be wrong, because it seems a curiosity to see one of the most isolated countries in the world overrides such concerns, for many at least. The number of European travellers, in particular to North Korea, is on the rise. Beijing-based Goryeo Tours estimates up to 6,000 European tourists travel to the north every year. According to a pro-North Korea newspaper in Japan, foreign tourism in the north has increased by 20% in the first half of this year compared to last year. North Korea has been heavily promoting hiking, cycling, golfing and even skiing trips to attract more tourists to the country. However, tour operators do admit that the number of American tourists has dipped since 2 of their countrymen were arrested in Pyongyang back in April. Back here in South Korea, and the country's jobless rate edged down to 3.3% in August as the nation's manufacturing and service sectors kicked on from a sluggish start to the summer. The jobless rate is down 0.1 of a percentage point from July. The number of new jobs increased for the second consecutive month, with Statistics Korea saying the number of people in work reached 25.9 million in August. That's nearly 600,000 more than the same month last year. More positions opened up in the manufacturing, retail and service sectors last month, but job creation was down in the financial, agricultural and fisheries sectors. Now, as with most things, cash was once king on Seoul's public transportation services and the only way you could pay for your fare back in the day. But those days are long gone, thanks to the TMoney Card, which provides millions of people in Korea with a very convenient and cashless method to pay for the subway, the bus, or even taxi rides. Our Gwon-soo reports on how the technology inside these cards is evolving and winning fans overseas.
A tough commute in Southeast Asia. This is just one of the Korea Smart Card Corporation's recent ventures into the global market. The company's prepaid transportation card, the TMoney Card, which launched 10 years ago, is already a staple for millions of commuters in Korea.
When I used to pay for my fees with cash, it was inconvenient, but not anymore since I use the TMoney Card. All I have to do is charge it.
The most convenient part of the TMoney Card is its integration system. Whether you're traveling by subway, bus or taxi, this one card can get you where you want to go.
And it's also selling overseas. Korea Smart Card told Arirang News that TMoney America was established in New York last month to expand its service in the U.S. The company's first service abroad in Wellington, New Zealand, has been running since 2008.
When cards are held against the TMoney card reader there, the settlement data is sent to Korea, and those results are transferred back to New Zealand. That's remote management service through cutting-edge technology.
Since it uses NFC technology, a short-range wireless technology, the business opportunities expand beyond the scope of transportation. It makes micropayments at more than 50,000 businesses possible, including convenience stores and vending machines.
Korea Smart Card says it's hoping to eventually become the world's #1 smart mobility and payment service provider and is already in talks to expand its service in another location by the end of this year. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
And TGI Friday, everyone, as we kick things off with the Incheon Asian Games, which is now just 1 week away, as Korean athlete and delegation got together on Thursday for their inaugural ceremony. As a way of showing support to the athletes competing in the upcoming Asian Games, 646 members from 27 sports attended the ceremony. And their goal was simple: win at least 90 gold medals and finish second in the overall medal count for the 5th straight time. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Chung Hong-won was also on hand to give support to the athletes, stating that he hopes the athletes have great pride in representing the country and that they do their very best. Meanwhile, as the Korean U23 men's football team continue to prepare for the upcoming games, the men's senior team is quietly preparing for the upcoming October friendlies. And on Thursday, newly hired head coach Uli Stilicke finalized his coaching staff. And coaching alongside the 60-year-old German will be his assistant coach, Carlos Armoa from Argentina. But included in the coaching staff will be the interim coaches Shin Tae-yong, Park Gun-ha, and Kim Bong-soo. And while their contract was until January under former manager Hong Myung-bo, they're expected to receive an extension. And now moving over to baseball, where Korea's independent baseball team, the Goyang Wonders, have disbanded after years of trying to join the Futures League. The owner of the Wonders, Hamin, who invested around $10 million into the team, have decided to disband the team due to a lack of income. The team produced 22 pro KBO players and was led by one of the best managers in the game in Kim Sung-gun. And now staying in domestic baseball, let's jump into our Thursday night KBO action as the Samsung Lions win on a walk-off against the Kia Tigers 5-4, with the Lotte Giants beating the NC Dinos 5-1, and the SK Wyverns crushed the Nexon Heroes 11-2. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the Hanwha Eagles take on the Tucson Bears. And of course, going to the game here, we go over to the bottom of the first. Kim Hyun-soo with an RBI single to right scores Chung Soo-bin as the Tucson Bears take a 1-0 lead. But second inning, Kang Kyung-hak's RBI single ties the game at 1-1 before Chung Gun-woo answers with a clutch 2-run single to right center as the Hanwha Eagles take a 3-1 lead. But a 4-1 third inning for the Tucson Bears give them a 5-3 lead before Song Kwang-min in the 4th inning, deep to right field. There it goes, a 3-run shot, and the Hanwha Eagles take the lead again 6-5. But Tucson's bat comes alive with 16 hits in this game, including Kim Hyun-soo going 3 for 3 with 3 runs scored as the Tucson Bears win a slugfest 11-6. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning, I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast, and happy Friday. We have another cool or maybe even considered as a chilly morning here in Korea. However, the temperatures will rise up about 10 degrees in average, and looking at our today's highs, it will be ranging in the low 20s to the high 20s, which is a bit cooler than yesterday. And also, as you can see, we have cloudy skies all across the nation with the high pressure front that's moving from the north down to south of the peninsula will keep the clouds going all throughout the day. And also, there is chances of on and off showers in Gangwon-do and Jeju Island later this afternoon. Now going over to our today's readings, Seoul will peak at 28 this afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan is warm, hitting up to 27 and 26 degrees. Now moving over to other regions, Jeju Island peaks to 25, Dokdo reaches 23, while Mankungang is chilly all throughout the day at 15. Now that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that's all we have for now. Do enjoy the rest of your weekend wherever you're watching us, and stay tuned to Arirang TV. We'll be back again for our next newscast at noon Korea time. Until then, goodbye.